Even though it was the early 90s, the guy I was dealing with had larger than average sideburns. He had a pair of shoes on which I would describe as, or everybody used to describe as, brothel creepers, but he seemed harmless enough. He knew what he wanted, and it took no time at all to agree on a deal. I'm always concerned when a deal's too easy. He'd never asked for any discount, and he'd got no part exchange. Then he asked me to propose him on finance. When people are as easy as this to deal with, it's usually because they've got no chance of getting finance. And I let out a deep sigh as I fished a proposal form out of my desk drawer. The deal had been so fast, as I approached him to meet and greet, he'd basically just said, "I want this one." I led him to my desk without knowing anything about him. I asked him his details to complete the finance form. "What's your name?" "It's Elvis." Wrote down Elvis. Aaron. My heart sank, but I still wrote it down. He changed his name by deed poll. That was it. I knew the deal would be a non-starter. I let out another sigh, pushed the prop form across the desk and said, "Elvis, you need to fill it in up to here." And I put a big cross under bank details. I may as well have put a cross right through the form. I went and made myself a brew while he filled in the rest of the form. Elvis wrote down all the answers that would generate an on a TV quiz game. Rented accommodation, unemployed, no deposit, 60 months agreement, list of previous addresses where he'd stayed for less than 2 years. I've no doubt that Elvis would have paid for the car, but on paper, he just wouldn't stack up for the finance company. I drank the last of my brew, picked the form up, and I faxed it to the finance company. As I was walking back to my desk, my phone rang. It was the finance company. Elvis had just been declined. In the time it'd take me to walk 30 yards from the fax machine, he'd been declined. It was a new world record for the fastest manual decline in history. I broke the bad news to Elvis and tried to soften the blow by saying it was probably because he'd only been at his address for a short while. He wasn't all shook up. He must have expected it, as that morning he'd been searched and declined by every other garage on the main road. And we were at the end of the road. He said, "Thank you very much." Then Elvis left the building. Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Elvis didn't think that was the case, as he came back time and time again over the next few months and performed several encores. He continued to fill in his own form, but never got accepted. After a while in the job, you don't really need to propose anyone to know whether they'll get accepted by the finance company. There are other buzzwords. Kill the deal stone dead, like answering 3 weeks to time with bank or time with employer 6 days, divorce with 10 dependents. So as I completed the document, I said to the customer, "I'm just going to get approval from the finance company for you." I didn't actually need to get approval from the finance company. Vauxhall had started subsidised finance, £99 deposit finance scheme. It had proved so popular they were inundated with proposals and they hadn't got enough staff to keep up with demand. They'd introduced automatic acceptance. Even Elvis could have gotten a car on this scheme. I knew that I'd be cocking the finance company up if I did this deal, and even though it would cost me commission and a sale, it was professional courtesy to tip them off. There was no way that he would get finance normally. Not just because of the answers on his prop form, there was something else. He just didn't seem right. The girl on the end of the phone, she was clearly under pressure, and I could hear all the other phones in her office ringing off the hook as I explained my concerns to the underwriter at General Motors Acceptance Corporation. But to my dismay, her answer was abrupt and condescending. Which bit of automatic acceptance do you not understand? She said. I just had time to ask her if she got a refund from the charm school before she slammed the phone down. Whenever I warn someone, I always seem to get shouted at. Elvis's record, Don't Step on My Blue Suede Shoes, would simply have been called F off, and been a lot shorter if I'd penned it. Warnings should be precise and not open to interpretation. For instance, when I'm out walking with my girlfriend and I see something on the pavement that I don't think she spotted, I simply grunt dog shit rather than look out. There's no helping some people. She tells me off and gives me the library treatment for the next few minutes. To my way of thinking, you would be unlikely to react by sheltering from a flying dog, ducking, and it concentrates your mind to look straight at the floor and take evasive action. Look out could mean that there's a cyclist approaching, there's a low branch, pigeons flying over, or any other of the hazards that face you when you're out trying to get some fresh air. Incidentally, an aerial threat is covered by incoming. Right, where were we with my story? A couple of days later, we'd PDI'd and taxed the vehicle. The customer arrived at our showroom with his suitcases. He was picking up his new car and heading off for a few weeks on a driving holiday. He gave us £99 in cash for the deposit, signed the documents, and off he went on his jollies. Out of the blue, our General Motors acceptance company rep turned up, and rather sheepishly, he asked if I could prove that we'd actually received the £99 deposit. He was clearly embarrassed as he asked me to show him the paper trail for the deal, order form, receipt for the deposit, paying in book, and even bank statement showing the money had been paid in. The strange customer that I had warned them about hadn't made one payment on his new car. If I couldn't prove that I'd taken the deposit, it would be a fraudulent agreement. GMAC was looking for any little excuse to blame us and take the money back. Then it would be us that were left with the problem of getting our money and the car back off the customer. My paperwork was in order and we were in the clear. Now it was my turn to be condescending and abrupt. Feigning sympathy, I said, "Oh dear, if only someone had warned you." "Oh, wait a minute, I did." I looked up the key number for the GMAC rep and I cut him a new key. The rep set off to repossess the car. The rep got the car no problem. It was parked up and had been cleaned out. He had to put some petrol in as it was bone dry and running on fumes. The customer had wanted it to go on holiday, and as it had only cost him the £99 deposit, it had been a lot cheaper than hiring a car for a month. Actually, it cost him virtually nothing, as he'd even cashed in the 11 months unexpired road tax. He'd gotten himself a free holiday courtesy of Vauxhall. That was the last I heard, until I was reading the local paper. My strange customer's arrest had made the headlines. He was a pub landlord, and according to the story, he threatened one of his customers that was worse for wear with a samurai sword. Apparently you're not allowed to do this. Well, you weren't allowed to do it then. Now everybody walks around with zombie knives and nobody bats an eyelid. But if I saw this, I'd struggle to think of a suitable warning apart from run. In the eyes of the law, Einstein was wrong. The definition of insanity is not doing the same thing over and over again, but threatening a customer with a samurai sword is. And he got another free holiday, this time courtesy of Her Majesty's Prison Services. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye bye.